Chris Paul just got waived from the Phoenix Suns. We don't know all the terms yet. We don't know what's going to happen. Could go back to Phoenix. Could go elsewhere. But I'm going to tell you why the Pelicans should at least make the call. Let's get into it.
You must know that first. Can't nothing and nobody fade what we trying to do and what we about to do. Second thing is, we got this game on our level. You understand what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of In Space. I'm your host, Chris Connor. Humble and grateful. Appreciate y'all as always for showing support, showing love. Not a slow day, slow media day today. In regards to the New Orleans Pelicans. All I'm gonna say is I'm gonna mind my business. Shout out to Zion Williamson and congrats to him having a baby. Wish him success, healthy child, and success on the court upcoming. Now let's get into basketball, right? Some news today. By now you've all seen it. Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns, they're either restructuring or they are moving on, cutting ties. Depending on who you believe, this has been in play for a while now in regards to Phoenix and their situation with Chris Paul. I think I saw as well an updated report that Chris Paul would prefer to return back to Phoenix. And look, before you get into the video, you get into the comments, people do this all the time, right? They just see the headline, they don't read it. I do want y'all in the comments, but watch the video at least. You know what I'm saying? Give me that. I put in enough work for y'all to give me that. I know all the reasons that Chris Paul coming back to New Orleans wouldn't make sense. I know his flaws. I know his age. I know his history. I know him being a little guard. I know his injury history on this team. I know it. I understand it all. I know him being past his prime. All those things are valid and true. You can talk about the attitude. You can talk about how he is with his, how hard he is on his teammates. Whatever you want to look at it from, the money he might cost, I get all that. All that's valid. I'm not telling you it's going to happen. In fact, I don't think it will happen. I don't think Chris Paul will be a Pelican. Just like I didn't think when the Pelicans were interested before, I didn't think that he would end up being in New Orleans. But with that being said, you got to at least make the call. We've been here before. We talked about this with if you watch my show around the trade deadline when Kevin Durant was available. Same thing. If you can afford to make the call, if you got a slot, you got a friendly, a nice looking opportunity, possibly make the call, right? Look, and we'll get into let's start with this video, right? There's sentimental reasons involved, and you all know if you've watched this team dating back to their early days as the Hornets in New Orleans, you know what this is.
Like, okay, it's time for us to move on. Like that city, man, listen, and I know. Like, I will never have another bond like I had with that city.
So he's talking about, and shout out to the guys on Pivot doing a really good job there. But Chris Paul was on a podcast with Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor talking about his career. And one of the elements is Chris Paul. Chris Paul was on the show. One of the elements was his time in New Orleans, leaving New Orleans, how that went, which he's kind of talked about a little bit, but he went deeper into detail, including some of his reasons and to where he wanted to be, the teams that he chose to be on afterwards, where if it wasn't Los Angeles, why he eventually chose to go to Phoenix down the line, why he wanted to be a Clipper, all those things, the trade. If you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead. But that element, he talked about not 100% understanding, being confused why he gets booed. And that's a different discussion because I got a few clips on that. But there is a portion of the fan base that would love Chris Paul to come back. And if he did come back, the other side would welcome him as well. You get over the stuff on the floor. You get over whatever feelings you have about him leaving, including myself. But that's one side of it. The other side is the basketball side. Look, man, as I mentioned to you, I know he's past his prime. I know defensively, he's not anywhere close to what he once was, and even then still being undersized. But I look at it from this perspective, and there's a lot of different things that could change with an addition like that. But I'm thinking about, clearly another veteran voice. We talked a lot. Chaz had multiple videos about the Pelicans needing accountability. We talked about it on a lot of our shows. Five's written articles. I mean, it's been. And at the end, I think shortly after some of those videos were put out, players started talking about holding each other accountable. I think Willie Green mentioned it as well. Like, that was what those guys even said after games and after practices. Well, you're talking about an accountability general. Chris Paul comes in being that kind of individual, having that reputation. He's familiar with the city. He's familiar with all of that stuff. That may help some of the young guys coming in, some of the guys that are there in regards to, all right, I ain't been here in a while, but this how you move, this what you do, this what you don't do. Maybe the voice and the current veterans, on the team, it's just not working, or possibly won't ever work. But that kind of voice and that kind of mentality, I don't think would hurt this locker room at all. Relationship with Willie Green. Okay, if David Griffin doesn't make the call, Willie Green should make the call. For those that remember when Chris Paul was in the finals with the Suns, his only appearance, who was his assistant coach? Willie Green. So Willie Green, Monty, that whole thing. But Chris Paul talked glowingly about Willie Green before he ended up leaving and becoming a coach with. And becoming the head coach of the Pelicans. Like, those were things. Their relationship, is pretty solid. So you have that connection there. And I think you have the talent and you have the need for a guy that I think under the right setup, you could use an individual, another guy that can organize this team. I don't know if it can simply be Jose Alvarado. I don't know if you can simply put it on Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. I hope that works. But if you bring in Chris Paul, you at least know you get that someone who's going to be able to get you, a seasoned dude, a general, which this team can use sometimes and getting together, which is going to allow so many other individuals to have the opportunity to create off ball, to get more spot up attempts, preserve energy. Even if he's not the same pick and roll dude that he was when he was in his prime in New Orleans. I think, you're still looking at a guy who in his sleep can average 8 to 10 assists. That's just what he is. That can matter and that can help this team. Another element, everywhere he's went, even as he's gotten older, he's been an elevator for, there's other players on the team, smaller guards, wings, so on and so forth. He's elevated a lot of the individuals, but you look directly at the center position. Everywhere Chris Paul has went his entire career, he's made his big man better. Multiple of them. The guy I'm thinking about right now is a perfect reason for you to bring in Jackson Hayes. Chris Paul has played with a lot of athletic centers, similar, comparable in from some respects to Jackson Hayes, DeAndre Jordan, Tyson Chandler. A lot of lob threats, athletic guys that go. He's still to this day, one of the best lob throwers in the game. We saw it for years with him and Tyson Chandler, as I mentioned. Wasn't able to elevate them all. Shout out to Hilton Armstrong. But I think with that athleticism, at worst, that will be the best point guard that Jackson Hayes had. Maybe that helps his elevation as well. If you choose to retain him, it might give you a good reason too if you bring in Chris Paul. And we don't know what the numbers will be. You don't even know if you can afford him. Again, I don't think you could bring him back. I don't think he's going to be a Pelican, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't make the call. Now, I know the other part of what you're thinking.
Anywhere. That's why it's rare you see. Now Ingram's getting involved, and Bridges has to step between them. It's rare you see a rookie defensively.
Players have beef all the time, man. You professional. You put that to the side if it gives you an opportunity for you to win. You're going to ask about lineups. You figure that out. You put in the comments if you brought in Chris Paul, what you would do. I don't like small guard lineups to start for me. So that means CJ McCollum would have to come off the bench in this equation, or you would ultimately, move him. I'm not saying that that's the move you should make. I would like to see CJ McCollum play basketball in New Orleans upcoming this year after the year he had last year of just of being a Warrior. And even if it wasn't the most efficient, the most pretty some nights, it's almost a miracle that when you look at the amount of games so many other guys missed, him having multiple ailments and still playing. You may not agree with all the things that he says, or, you may not like his gameplay. Whatever your criticisms of CJ, you can't go against the Warrior that he was last year and how he fought through so many things just to keep this team playing eligible. So perfect world, maybe he comes off the bench, or maybe he starts. Herb Jones goes to the bench. But hey, I think of Trey Murphy. When Chris Paul joins the team, he's looking for his shooters. You got quite the one. Be great for Trey Murphy's improvement. Would help regardless of the situation that him and Brandon has had. Be great for him. I think, Zion hasn't played with someone, with a general like that. And when, hey man, that's Chris Paul is one of the greatest floor generals of all time. But just that level of distributor, that level of, you saw the connection that Zion had with Lonzo, and Lonzo was, in some respects, while in the half court he had his struggles with picking, with pick and rolls. He loved to pass the ball, had really good accuracy, and it was a big reason that Zoe and Zion established the relationship and the connection that they did, because Zoe knew where to find him off the gate. Zoe knew how to get him the ball. He knew how to get him there. He knew how to get him the ball there accurately. You bring in Chris Paul in the half court, it's totally different with the pick and roll manipulation, whether it's fun to watch, whether it's entertaining, or you consider it basketball, foul baiting, all of it. That the understanding of angles, pick and rolls, coming in off screens, shading, when to throw lobs, when to shoot floaters, when to shoot mid ranges. Yo, man, once again, would do wonders for this team and how you were be able to construct it. I think on his career, close to 37% 3-point shooter. Last few years, he's been inconsistent, but it's not like this team has a large list of shooters to begin with. You could do a lot worse than Chris Paul. I really think about the organization again. If bringing in a new offensive coordinator of sorts, who better to implement and run these styles and give his input and put this stuff together than CP? Maybe it is CJ. Maybe it can be CJ, but not to the level that it would be a Chris Paul. I'm saying under the right circumstance, I don't know what the man wants money-wise. I'm sure he's not just coming in for a league minimum or even an MLE. But you gotta make the call and find out. I ain't too good for Chris Paul. I'm not. And then there's this, because there's another guy that he could also benefit.
Yeah, I wasn't saying out 100%. Not to care about anybody else, but if that person plays, I'm playing.
The good news is, Jose, if Chris Paul's a Pelican, every game he played, you could play. Y'all just will be on the same team. I'm of the mindset, man, that some of the people in life that you hate the most, that you think you're on the opposite side of the spectrum of, y'all sometimes don't like each other because y'all very similar. They sometimes can give you the best advice, sometimes it'll be the best thing for you. I don't agree with all the things Chris Paul's done on the floor. Y'all could let me know if y'all think he's a dirty player. Y'all could let me know, what y'all think about him, or if y'all lost respect for him. And I have my own opinion about some of the things that he does sometimes on the floor. I think it does, it can cross a line. But I know that dude wants to win. I know he desperately wants to win a championship. And I know he loves the city of New Orleans. I don't think he'll return. I think that there are options that he might think are better for him. But if it is anyway, if he at least thinks about it, I welcome it. And I think it could fit, and I think it could benefit a lot of different individuals. And it also changed the way you put together your team, or you put together the rest of your team. Change the type of guys that want to come to your team. Now, you may only get a chance to see it, fully healthy for 8 games out of the year, but that don't change where you currently at right now. Put it together. Let's see it if you can. Get Chris Paul back to New Orleans. Finish the story. At least make the call. That's all I'm asking. Just make the call. Appreciate y'all as always, man. Shout out to our people at DraftKings Sportsbook, New York Life, Birdsall Law Firm. I think it's gonna be a fun week, and it's gonna be a fun summer for us at Boo Crew, man. It's gonna be a lot more Chris Paul stuff, content dropping, a lot of stuff about BI, a lot of stuff about Zion, for better for worse. Zion, stay off the internet, man. Live your life, have fun. You know what I mean? Get what you got to get out of you, man. You know what I mean? And enjoy impending fatherhood. But yeah, man. I think that's it. I will holler at y'all next week. If not, I'll be on the Talk with the Gang, Propels Talk, Boo Crew on Sunday. Appreciate y'all as always. Getting them comments. Let me know what y'all think. Should the Pelicans make the call for Chris Paul? What would it look like? What would you do to the team afterwards? Give me your rotations. Do you even want him back? Like to hear it.